the one thing that I just maybe want to maybe it's not even pushback as much as it is a question. Mm-hmm. In the heat of the battle that Ukraine's in right now, and going beyond all the media manipulation and propaganda, there's a lot of people really suffering.
Absolutely.
There's already been a lot of violence. Zelensky, whether we think he's an actor or whether we think he's a messiah, he's in serious danger, and he's staying there. So in spite of all the media propaganda and all that, there's a lot of real suffering and a lot of stakes on the line right now. And so how helpful is it right now to be arguing, debating, and making these issues of discernment with media manipulation our primary talking points right now, versus making our primary talking points how should the West respond in helping Ukraine and denouncing Putin's actions? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
My question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and so far in this conversation, we focused on historical context, political and causes of the issue at hand. If you want to ask me, what should Christians be doing right now?
Yeah. And that's what I'm wanting to get towards. Yeah. So that's what I'm making my way towards.
Right. Yeah. So, look, I think that, I think now is both a time for discernment and for prayer, for lamenting and for being thoughtful. Absolutely, Christians should lament the loss of life. There's a real loss of life. The current reports are that there have been 1 million Ukrainians who are fleeing for refuge. Ukrainians, they don't want to stay and fight this fight. Essentially, the Ukrainian government is conscripting men 18 to 60 to stay and fight. And quite frankly, I don't think a lot of those guys want to stay and fight. So it's true suffering. War is hell. It's one of the greatest manifestations of the sinfulness of man on clear display in the world. So I think we do need a posture of concern, of prayer, of lament for the loss of life. And it's totally fine to not want to engage in conversations about propagandas, media narratives. If I were to say something, I'd say that it'd be easier for your average Christian to avoid those conversations if our leaders were more thoughtful, and if the individuals who we look to sort of filter and mitigate these issues for us weren't swept up in the narrative so often themselves. So that when you're just a pew sitting Baptist and you're trying to figure this out, and you turn to somebody who sounds, who's a Christian public figure, but they sound just like the mainstream media, and that sort of raises a little bit of cognitive dissonance for you, well, then that distracts you from doing things like just, how can I pray for Ukraine? How can I think about that? So I would.
That's a great point.
I would encourage our leaders and our pastors to be different. Look, I listened to the briefing this morning by Dr. Moeller, and I thought he did a great job raising some wonderful points. I mean, he honed in on how this is a great moment for evangelism. He said that in the face of real evil and suffering like a war, the postmodern illusion of competing truth claims just shatters. So if you're talking to a non-Christian neighbor or friend or coworker who's lamenting what's happening in Ukraine, this is possibly an opportunity for you to share the gospel with them as they are being forced to deal with the fact that there's true good, there's true evil. And if there is, who decides that? The judge of the universe. Who is that? God. Who is his son, Jesus Christ? And we all have that same evil within our heart. So I really appreciate Dr. Miller's point on this as an opportunity for evangelism. I'd like to see more.